It was the winter of 1943, and the Eastern Front was becoming more brutal by the day. The Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were locked in a bitter struggle, with both sides losing thousands of men in the frozen landscapes of Russia. Among them was a young German soldier, Hans Müller, who had been drafted into the army when he was just 18 years old. He had no choice but to fight, but like many others, he had no real desire to be part of Adolf Hitler's war. Hans had been stationed in a small, isolated town in the south of Russia. The town was under siege by Soviet forces, and his unit was one of the last to hold out in a crumbling German defense line. The weather was unbearable, with temperatures dropping far below freezing, and food and supplies were running low. One evening, after a long day of fighting, Hans and his comrades were huddled in a basement, taking shelter from the artillery fire that rained down on their position. The walls were thin, and the constant sound of explosions rattled their nerves. Hans sat near a radio transmitter, a piece of equipment that had been there since the start of the occupation. The radio had been silent for days, but that night, a faint signal came through. It was a message from the Germans' high command, but not the usual military orders. It was a call for morale, a reminder to keep fighting, even as the tide of war turned against them. Hans listened carefully, his fingers nervously gripping the edge of the radio. The message was filled with empty promises of victory, yet the reality on the ground could not have been further from the truth. As he sat there, a strange thought crossed Hans's mind. For a brief moment, he considered sending a message back, a message of his own, one that he knew might not be heard for days, if at all. It would be his personal farewell, a final transmission that would not carry the weight of official orders, but the quiet truth of his own experience. In a shaky voice, Hans spoke into the radio. "To anyone who hears this, I don't know if anyone will listen, but I am tired. We are all tired. This war is madness, and we are just children, being used by those in power. I don't know if we'll make it out of here, but if someone hears this, know that I am sorry, for all the lives lost, for everything we've done." The transmission ended abruptly, and Hans shut off the radio. He didn't expect anyone to hear it. Perhaps no one ever would. He lay back against the cold stone wall, closing his eyes, listening to the distant sounds of battle. The cold was creeping in deeper, and Hans felt as if the walls were closing in around him. The next morning, the Soviet forces advanced closer, and the German soldiers were forced into a final retreat. The town, like so many others, fell to the Soviets. Hans and his comrades fought to the bitter end, but they were overwhelmed. Days later, a Soviet radio operator picked up Hans's last transmission. Just as he had feared, it would be lost forever. The message was passed along to higher command, and the Soviet soldiers learned about the despair of the German troops. Although it was too late for Hans, his message was a silent testament to the toll of war. It echoed in the hearts of both Soviet and German soldiers, a reminder that beyond the uniforms, beyond the flags and ideologies, there were just human beings caught in the midst of a conflict that none of them truly understood. This story gives a glimpse into the emotional toll and the internal struggles of soldiers during World War II, conveying a sense of hopelessness and humanity amidst the chaos of war.